Hello and welcome back to another session, which is the last session in this section called Advantages and Disadvantages of Data Modeling. So far, we have learned about what all the different types of data models and what all their characteristics. At the same time, it is important to know what all the pros and cons of these data models. So let's learn each one of them now. Let me move on to the next slide. So let's understand the advantages of data model first. The main goal of designing the data model is to make certain that data objects offered by the functional team are represented accurately. So this is the process of making sure the business stakeholders are in sync with technical team on how the data being represented in the data warehouse system, so that when the data is processed and given to the end users, data is not misinterpreted and understandable by the end users. The data model should be detailed enough to be used for the building of the physical databases. So the conceptual data model is based for the logical data model. Similarly, once the conceptual and logical data models are finalized, then it will help building the physical data model. So third thing, the information in the data model can be used for defining the relationship between the tables, primary and the foreign keys, and stored procedures. So these are the main, the components of the building and the databases, which could be assessed and finalized through the data modeling process. So the data model helps business to communicate within and across the organization. So data model helps to document the data mappings in the ETL process. So as we have learned in our previous chapters already, ETL is a process of extracting, transforming and loading the data from one place to the other. The data model helps in coming up with lookup table and other mapping tables based dimensions, facts, attributes and metrics decided during the data model. These are decided during the data modeling process. The next advantage is data model helps to correct the sources, correct the sources of the data to populate the model. Since data source information is already finalized, because you already know from which, DBMS system or OLTP systems you are going to get the data. So since you already know that source, it is easy to refer to the data source details and populate the data into right data table. These are some of the advantages of the data model. Let's understand what are the disadvantages of the data model. So to develop the data model, one should know physical data stored structures. This may not be a disadvantage, but it may be a disadvantage if the person working on this data model do not have expertise as a database developer. So when you are constructing any physical data models, right, so you have to have a deep understanding on what all the different type of primary keys I need to define, what are the different type of foreign keys I need to define, anything, you can you can enforce any null constraint to any of the fields, something like that. So you have to have a lot of experience, you have to have a particular expertise in that particular field. What is the next disadvantages? This is a navigation system produces the complex application development management. Thus, it requires a knowledge of the biographical truth. So what is biographical truth? So basically the biographical means it is an information about person's life or details about the life of a person. So an example would be details like who you are, where you come from and what you have done. So what is biographical truth then? So it's a truthful information. What is the biographical truth in the perspective of this data modeling? So it's a truthful information about personal life. That means your data life. So this can be connected to the data model as well. And the disadvantages exist when the person designing these three models should be aware of each stage of data modeling and should be able to connect between the models. If the person does not have the expertise, say for example, then the data model may fail in due course of time. So That's why I keep saying, like, you have to have expertise in this field in order to make sure these things are taken. I mean, the biographical truth are taken play, or taken care. So even smaller change made in the structure require modification in the entire application. Since the data modeling is a very robust model, right? So, and many tables and procedures are interconnected. Very small change may also bring huge amount of work for the team. So the management is not so easy job, because this you have defined this data model from the conceptual to the logical to the physical data model level. So everything is interconnected. So if you want to make any changes anywhere, you have to make sure you cover all the impacted areas. These are some of the advantages and disadvantages of the data modeling. Hope you enjoyed this session. I'll see you in the next chapter. Thank you.